You're living someone else's life and you don't even know it. You think you know who you are. You think your beliefs are yours. Your values are yours. Your opinions are yours. Your identity is yours. But what if I told you that almost everything you think is you is actually somebody else's information? What if your entire identity is borrowed, programmed into you before you were old enough to question it? What if you've been living somebody else's life and calling it your own? I know this sounds extreme, but hang on a second, just stay with me. Because until you understand this, until you see how much of your identity is inherited, you'll never be truly creative. You'll never be truly innovative. You'll never be truly free, and that's sad. You just be a really good copy of what everyone else expects you to be. And that's not why you're here, I can promise you that. Your borrowed identity has been running your life without you knowing it. And most importantly, it's time to detangle what's yours from what's theirs. So you can finally live from your own truth. So, I was 21 years old, sitting in my Oslo apartment, and I couldn't breathe. Not literally, but close. Everyone around me saw me as this special, different, strange person, blunt person who did everything without questioning. I'd built a reputation. I fit into the box that people understood and owned. But I knew I was so much more, and I was suffocating in it. It was hard. Because I looked around on my life and I realized I don't know which parts were actually me and which parts were just performance, everybody else's expectations, the programming to make me and everyone else feel safe. I believe success meant stability because my father worked at the same company for 30 years and called that achievement. And it was, in a way, for him. I believe women should be diplomatic and soft-spoken because my grandmother's voice was still in my head. Annett, you catch more flies with honey. God. I believed asking for help was weakness because Norwegian culture taught me self-sufficiency above all else. But were these my beliefs, really? Or just inherited ones I'd never questioned? I didn't know. And that terrified me. So I made a radical decision. I left, I bought a one-way ticket to Asia, started creating my first business remotely, and gave myself permission to question everything. I had to get out. I had to get away from everyone who knew Annett so I could figure out who Annett actually was. That departure, that was my inciting incident. That was the moment I started to see most of who I thought I was wasn't actually me. And that realization changed everything for me. So let's go. Let me explain what I mean by borrowed identity. For female founders, leaders, and entrepreneurs, this is extremely tricky and important because we're not just carrying our personal programming, we're carrying generations of it and creating on somebody else's information. From childhood, we gather information. What's acceptable, what's possible, what's appropriate for someone like us. And this information becomes our operating system. The problem, most of this belongs to our parents' beliefs, our culture's assumptions, our society's limitations. And when you're trying to innovate, to lead, to build something new, you can't do it from somebody else's programming. Because innovations requires originality. And originality requires knowing what's uniquely yours. If you're operating from inherited information, inherited beliefs about what's possible, inherited values about what matters, inherited assumptions about how things should be done, you can't create anything new. That's impossible. You can only replicate what's already exists. You become what we call a bleak copy. Not because you're not talented, but because you're executing someone else's vision with your skills. Your imagination is stagnated by information that might not even be valid for you anymore. And this shows up everywhere in your work, in your speech. You second guess decisions because you're checking them against what you should do, not what feels right. You chase metrics that don't actually matter to you because they matter to someone else. You build businesses that look successful from the outside but feel hollow from the inside. This is what happens when you haven't detangled your identity from the borrowed one. You have to detangle and ask yourself why. So sitting alone in a hostel in Bangkok, 3 months into my trip, I started journaling. I wrote down every belief I held about myself, about success, about what I was capable of, and then I asked one question for each. Who told me this? I wrote, I believe women should build consensus before making decisions. Then, who told me that? And I traced it back. My first boss, a woman, would navigated corporate Norway by never making waves. She taught me that collaborative leadership was the only way for women to succeed. Whew. But was it my belief or just hers? I sat with that and I realized I don't actually believe that. I believe in decisive leadership that invites input but doesn't require consensus. But I'd been leading the other way because I thought I was supposed to. I wrote, I believe success means scaling quickly. Who told me that? Every startup article I'd ever read, every investor pitch I'd watched, the entire entrepreneurial culture I was swimming in. But did I believe that? Or was I just following the borrowed blueprint of what a successful founder looks like? And here again, I realized I don't care about scaling quickly. I care about building something sustainable that serves people deeply. But I've been chasing growth metrics that didn't align with my actual values. One after the other, I went through my beliefs. I need to have all the answers before I start. That was my high school teacher who punished mistakes. I should be humble about my achievements. That was Norwegian janteloven, the cultural law of thinking you're not special. I need a co-founder to be taken seriously. That was the tech industry's bias showing up as my own limitation. Almost nothing was actually mine. And the more I questioned, the more I found underneath. Buried beneath all the inherited programming was a different set of beliefs. I believed I could build something entirely new, not because I was arrogant, but because I hadn't yet learned to limit myself. I believed that fitting in was less important than being true, not because I was rebellious, but because fitting in felt like dying. I believed the answers were within me, not outside, because every time I looked outside for validation, I felt more at loss. These were mine. These were the beliefs I was born with before the world told me otherwise. But I had to leave everything I knew to find them. The shift came when I realized something profound. You can't be innovative if you're living on a borrowed identity. Innovation isn't about being smarter or working harder. It's about seeing what others don't see. And when everyone in your industry is operating from the same inherited blueprint, same growth strategies, same marketing approaches, same definitions of success, the only differentiation is execution. You're all looking through the same lens. So you all see the same opportunities. But when you operate from your original identity, your actual beliefs, your actual values, your unique way of seeing the world, you see different opportunities. It was a wow. Because you're looking through a different lens. Not all inherited information is bad. By the way, some cultural wisdom is worth keeping. Some lessons from your parents are gold. The point isn't to reject everything. It's to choose consciously what you want to keep. Because right now, you're not choosing, you're just carrying. And I saw this play out directly in my own business. When I was building from borrowed identity, creating the kind of company I thought I should create, positioning myself the way successful founders were supposed to position themselves, my work was fine. It was professional, competent, impressive even, but it wasn't extraordinary. It wasn't different. It wasn't mine. I wanted to be extraordinary. I was building a really good copy of what already existed. But when I started building from my actual identity, my real beliefs about how transformation happens, my real values around depth over scale, my real vision for what's possible, everything changed. My work became polarizing. Some people loved it, some people hated it, of course, but nobody forgot it. Because borrowed identity is safe, real identity is powerful. Borrowed identity keeps you acceptable, real identity makes you irreplaceable. Borrowed identity gets your approval, real identity creates impact. And I was done with approval. I wanted impact. But finding your real identity is not comfortable because it's me letting go of everything you thought you were. I remember the exact moment I had to choose. I was 2 years into building my consulting practice. I developed a methodology for helping women entrepreneurs scale their business through what I called identity first growth. And I was in a meeting with 3 potential investors who wanted to fund the expansion. They loved the concept, but they had notes. Of course they had notes. The market wants faster results, one said. You need to productize this. Create a 6-week program instead of 6 months. Make it scalable. And the messaging is too niche, another added. Don't position this for women specifically. That limits your market. Position it for all entrepreneurs. Also, the third one said, this depth work is too heavy. People want actionable tactics, not existential questions. Give them the framework, not the philosophy. Everything they said made logical sense. It was exactly what every other business coach was doing. It was a proven model, the borrowed blueprint that works. And I sat there feeling my stomach turn because that what they were describing wasn't my business. It was somebody else's business that I would execute. I would be building a bleak copy of what already existed, just with my name on it. So I had a choice. Follow their advice, take their money, build the borrowed version, play it safe, or stand in my own identity, trust my own vision, risk being wrong, risk walking away from funding. I took a deep breath. I appreciate your input, I said, but that's not the direction I'm taking. This work requires depth, it requires time, and it's specifically for women because we carry specific inherited programming that needs specific attention. If that doesn't work for you, I totally understand. And they walked away. They didn't invest, they didn't support it. And for about 3 weeks, I questioned absolutely everything. Did I just make a massive mistake? Should I have compromised? Was I being stubborn instead of strategic? But then I remembered something crucial. Borrowed identity creates borrowed success. And borrowed success is empty. I didn't want to build something that looked successful on paper, but felt hollow in my body. I didn't want to wake up 5 years running a business I didn't even believe in. So I kept going. I built in my way, slower, deeper, more niche, and it worked. Not because I was smarter than those investors, of course not, but because I was being authentic. It was real, it was mine, and the right people, the people who need exactly this, they could feel it. So let me ask you one thing. Where are you living from your borrowed identity right now? What beliefs are you holding that aren't actually yours? What version of yourself are you showing the world that's just a copy of what you think you should be? Because until you detangle what's yours from what's theirs, you can't truly be innovative. You can't truly be you. The world doesn't need more copies, it needs originals. Here's your practice if you want to test it out. Pick one belief you hold about yourself or your work, just one. Write it down, then ask, is this actually mine or is this what I was taught? Trace it back. Where did it come from? Your parents, your teacher, an industry, your culture. Be specific. Name the person or the moment if you can. And then ask the crucial question. Do I still want to carry this? Or is it time to let it go? You don't have to change everything at once. You don't have to throw out your entire identity and start over. But you do have to start questioning it. Start detangling. Start figuring out what's actually yours. Because that's where your power is. That's where your innovation is. That's where your unique contribution lives. Not in the borrowed identity, in the real one. I spent years living from inherited programming, being who I thought I should be, following beliefs that weren't mine, building from someone else's blueprint. And I was successful, but by conventional measures. But I was so empty, because borrowed success doesn't fill you. Only authentic does. So I left. I traveled. I questioned everything. I sat with the discomfort of not knowing who I was with all the inherited information. And slowly, my real identity emerged. The one I was born with. The one that's uniquely mine. And that identity, that's what allows me to create work that matters. To lead in a way that's authentic. To innovate in ways that others can't replicate. Not because I'm special, because I'm not, but because I'm operating from my truth, not someone else's programming, and you can do exactly the same. You just have to be willing to question, to detangle, to let go of the borrowed identity and find the real one. It won't be comfortable, I won't lie. It won't be quick, it won't be easy, but it will be so worth it, because on the other side of borrowed identity is your real power, your real creativity, your real contribution. And that's what the world needs from you, not another copy. We need you. If this resonated, subscribe. I'm here to help you detangle inherited programming and find your real identity. The best part? You can make the easy shift today with my free 7-day challenge, because you have everything you need within you. You just have to stop living from somebody else's blueprint long enough to access yours. So I see you next week.